just to not confuse things. And this alternative one is essentially that 9% being applied across the board to existing rates that are in place today. And so, you've got the 19 amounts, and then everything goes up 9%. What this may mean for customers, and again, we looked at both alternatives. I don't want to modify things for today's presentation, but the gray bars, the bill today is $107 bi-monthly for a typical residential customer. Customer uses 10,000 gallons every other month. And if adopted, that would go up $9 every other month, $4.50 per month for typical customer. Those who use less, the dollar amount increase can be lower. Those who use more, it's going to be higher, but it's the typical or average customer. And over time, subject to future decisions, that amount may go up. And depending on the alternative, the amount was a little bit different. But alternative one's what we're looking at for 2020. So that gives you an idea. And had that previous plan, that 22% adjustment been followed, we'd be looking at $122 in place in 2020 every other month instead of 116. So just kind of a reminder that it's a little bit better than what we're anticipating due to efforts that the city went forward with. So I'm going to stop for a second before I jump into sewer. Any questions or comments?
So this is all based on our current EQR schedule?
Yes.
Okay, so the question was, if we change it. So if we change the EQR schedule, this would have to be all recalculated, correct?
Yeah, modifications, correct.
It's better to see one.
Yeah,
That was my point.
For 20, there may be some merit in looking at some potential changes or an alternative too, but that discussion's for another day.
Okay.
You said we had rate increases starting in 2017.
Yes.
To what?
Each year, 17, 18, and 19.
What was the percent?
So I don't quote from memory. Let me double check. I've got the materials and I can answer that.
Did we raise the water 22% in 2018? Or it was great?
Yes, that went into effect in 19.
22% of the water.
Yep. Okay. And again, I can answer that in 17 and 18. I think there was a recommendation for a higher increase in 18 that the city adopted kind of a lower adjustment. 17 was a higher initial increase, but let me follow up with the exact numbers for you.
But my next question is, when you raised the rate on the year previous, say you raised it 22%, the year previous you raised it 17%. The 22% based on the increase in place, so the 22% really is compounding.
Correct.
So it's really a little more than 22%. And each year the 9% will be more than the 9 compounding over the next, like 2020 you say 9%, and then 2021 will be 9% over what you've already raised. So if you average that out, the two of them might be 9.5% actual.
Yep, okay. That is true.
All right.
So just jumping over to the wastewater fund, be mindful of time. Capital plan on the wastewater fund is, Michael just highlighted a little bit of the timing, but front-ended. So this is project 1 and project 2, and a mix of grant and debt funding as part of that project. Once we get through 2021, the wastewater capital plan really falls, and it's more line maintenance, line replacement, at least in the near term. And things may come up, and certainly that picture could change a bit, but getting through the expansion and the permit and regulatory required set of improvements is a pretty big step. These are big dollar amounts for the city. And certainly I don't want to minimize it, but once that happens, the multi-year capital plan really has the requirements fallen. So the anticipation is, barring a surprise, barring change in regulations, that wastewater is going to kind of flatline a bit. And we'll be able to rebuild fund balances and kind of the rate increases will tail off as we get closer to the end of this 5-year period. It's highlighted, and I won't, be redundant, the treatment plant expansion, project 1 and 2. And it's labeled expansion, as Michael indicated. A lot of it was also retrofitting the existing facility. There's a lot of replacement. So that may be poorly labeled on my part. It's not just expansion, although that is an element of it. But that's a big driver. And as we were looking out in 2018, some of this had to do with timing. Some of this, customers have responded as rates have gone up. And so we're seeing fewer flows now on the sewer side than when we looked at this a couple of years ago. And so the 18 plan was calling for a 9% increase. And then we had a little bit lower of a capital plan, and we're looking at 3% a year. The current plan is maintaining, as we kind of absorb this debt service, get through 2022, 8% a year, including in 2020, and then falling down to more of an inflationary 3% adjustment each year. Keep in mind that while debt and capital are big drivers, the city's operation and maintenance expenses generally increase each year. Inflation happens whether we increase our user charges or not. So sometimes communities will go years without increasing rates, and that can cause pretty steep requirements. So the diseconomies of scale that sort of eat the cost increases until they run fund balance down, and then you need to kind of jump things up. So part of the drivers is avoiding that in the future, and little smaller, more nominal increases longer term to mitigate and fund those annual cost increases. Similar to water, we put together and presented 2 alternatives for 2020. Like water, council endorsed alternative 1, so I'm going to just kind of block that off. And similar, it's maintaining the structure. The question in terms of your EQR schedule, everything's going up 8% across the board. And that's anticipated to be in place in April, as I mentioned, and billings later this year if this is adopted and implemented. So just to kind of continue with the comparison of bills today, bi-monthly bill for wastewater is $77, and with the 8% adjustment, that goes up to $83, or roughly $3 per month for a typical customer. And a little bit lower volumes is based on winter water usage, and estimated 6,000 gallons. Certainly those customers that lower flow devices, conserve, flush the toilet less, use less water in the wintertime, your bill's going to be below this. It is today and will be in the future. But this is highlighting a typical or average customer, if you will. And it's bi-monthly, so that throws me off because many communities bill monthly. So when I see this dollar amount, I've got to remind myself to divide it by 2 because I'm used to kind of the monthly threshold. And then just in terms of kind of stacking the 2 on top of each other, rates today, typical residential customer, bi-monthly bill is about $184. And with the proposed adjustments, that alternative 1, I didn't block off alternative 2, but alternative 1 would be $199 if implemented next year. And had alternative 2 been the preference, it would have been slightly higher typical bill in 2020. But as it stands, about a $15 increase for a typical customer every other month, or about $750 per month. And like any kind of volumetric-based piece, as I've said several times, if you use more, the bill's going to be a little higher. If you use less, it's going to be a little bit lower than what's shown here as it is today. So with that, that's kind of as I said earlier, recap of what was presented in October. I know 4 of you like to hear it back in October. And so,
You that very fast tonight. Compared to previous meetings. Any questions from council? I'll open it up to the public. Anybody in the public want to ask any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you, Andrew. So we'll go right in. We're going to take our chairs, go right into our regular meeting. We're going to say, you need to go use the facilities. Go for it. Bob. going on, Marcel? How are you? Hello, everybody.
Oh, we're gonna bring the tape over.
Yeah. Yeah, what, yeah, Mark, I guess, sounds good. If it get worse, then I may be saying here tomorrow.
I think you're good. Good, how are you? Yeah, hey, remember that. I'm like super stoked. Yeah, Ryan came with the recipe. Yeah. So I think those are gonna catch on. Yeah. I'm gonna evangelize them. Is that big? We were able to just pick up the weeds pan. Oh, wow. Yeah, and actually, good catch. Yeah, Michelle's doing a great job. It's been a nice touch to like she's my board and she's forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why I asked yours. People
They do not. Six more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're at almost 7:15. Good evening, everybody. This is our regular scheduled meeting for our city council, February 10th. Everybody in the audience, thanks for being here tonight. Everybody in the weather. Can I have a roll call, please?
Michael Miller.
Here.
Scott Canal.
Here.
Chuck Harmon.
Here.
Bob Boland.
Here.
John Curtis.
Here.
Art Bailey.
Here.
Jim Clark.
Here. Please stand with us for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have an agenda in front of us with no amendments that I'm aware of. So can I have a motion, please?
I would move that we approve the agenda for the February 10th, 2020 meeting.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Does anybody on council feel they have a conflict of interest tonight? With none, we'll move to the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from January 27th, 2020.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and seconds on the table. Art, you find anything? I think you found something wrong last time.
No.
All good? Anybody else? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll move to the bills. Can I have a motion,
I
please?
would move to approve bills to February 10th, 2020.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All right, open up for discussion and questions. Anybody have anything they'd like to get some verification on, or some clarification on?
I do on this one, page 2. 289, see by those things, doesn't say what it is.
Doesn't say who it was, I'll say the transfer funds over 6 months.
That's a periodic transfer to just cover operating expenses.
Oh, gotcha.
Payroll.
That's good.
Ah, for payroll.
But it say it cut it off,
Yeah.
6 months ago.
Yeah. Anybody see anything else? All right, hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Bob Baldwin.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right, do I have any scheduled public comment?
No.
Nothing?
See any there today, Jeff?
No. Okay, at this time, we will come out of our regular meeting. If council will look in the drawer next to you, get the hat that says Liquor Licensing Authority, pull it out and put it on. Nobody fell for it.
Almost.
So we're going to the Liquor Licensing Authority and into a public hearing. So this hearing will come to order. This is a public hearing for the Liquor Licensing Authority of the City of Idaho Springs to take testimony for consideration to modify the licensed premises for DBC Trading Post Number 2 LLC, DBA The Buffalo Bar, located at 1617 Minor Street. Persons signed up for the public comment will be sworn in by the city clerk. The order of this hearing will be as follows. First, we'll hear a staff report, then we'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll hear from any public testimony. This hearing is now declared open. It is 7:16, and we will listen to the staff. Diane?
Mayor and council, notice of public hearing and posting in accordance with CRS 44-3-311. The notice of public hearing to be held by the Liquor Authority concerning the above referenced application, the application, was published in the Clearfield Current on February 20th, 2020, and is marked as Exhibit A, and was posted on the premises February 27th, 2020. If your report says 2019, that's my error.
All right. Thank you, Diane.
I should also remind the authority that there's a little change in the request tonight. Originally, this was a request to add an outside patio. This is just for the inside interior addition.
All right, thanks for that update.
I provided, a list of the premises for your review and changed the motion.
As far as I know, the chief usually makes a recommendation, and
He had no issues.
he has no issues. He couldn't be here tonight. He's ill, and I told him to stay away from us. So the chief had no issues with this. Now we will hear from the applicant. Applicant, would you come up to the front and state your name and get sworn in by Diane, please?
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Alrighty.
Just come up and state your name and who you represent and kind of what you got going on here.
My name is Marcel Tomplay. I represent the DBC Trading Post, also known as the Westbound Down Brewing Company and the Buffalo Bar and Restaurant. We have remodeled the old knife shop at 1609 Minor Street. Before it was kind of, the windows were blacked out and we were using it as a storage facility, and we wanted to activate the space. The town has been very good to us. Thank you very much to the citizens and the community. So So we're going to be activating that in the mornings with coffee and breakfast burritos, and we would also like to sell beer because we are a brewery. So we will have the ability to have beer sold to go between the hours of 7 a.m. on weekdays and 6 a.m. on weekends. And we will, of course, be using that as a waiting room in the summertime, just much like the other big restaurants on Minor Street that have kind of incorporated there. All of the establishments next to one another, we kind of wanted to have that feel where you could be more of the block. But we feel like it's an improvement to the street, and we want to do what we do best in there. So thank you very much for your consideration.
All right. Thank you for the comments. We will now take is there any sign up for public testimony?
No.
Nobody? All right.
We have some questions.
Yeah.
You're selling beer to go at those hours?
That is correct.
Yeah,
No, it's sealed cans?
Sealed cans. That is correct. We will not be selling plastic cups
All right.
to be taken into the streets.
I guess loud.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I am from New Orleans, but I will not be carrying that tradition into this town yet. Yeah.
Any other questions from council?
Is this cake beef story? Oh, that's it.
Big beer storage, yeah.
Oh, beer.
Swirl cake beef.
It's a whole new trend.
Right.
Okay, with no more questions from the public or council, this hearing is will be now closed at 7:20. And now we'll go into council discussion. Does anybody have any questions or concerns that we would need to be discussing? Sounds good. Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we need a motion.
I move to approve the application for the modification of premises for DBC Trading Post Number 2, LLC, DBA The Buffalo Bar and Restaurant at 1617 Minor Street for the indoor proposed expansion only, based upon a finding that the applicant meets all criteria set forth in Colorado Liquor Regulation 47-302.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second on the table. Last chance for discussion. Roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Candell.
Yes.
Jeff Carmen.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right. You can expand, Marcel.
Cheers, thank
Thank you. All right. We will now move into planning and community development. We have Alan with us. What do you have for us?
It's just a first reading. Some time ago, Alan's watching the development on a good timing, I guess. Last spring, voice is better. Last spring we had a Miss Mary Padal at 1 Virginia Street. If you remember, she's been kind of a long-standing civil dispute with her neighbor at 4 Virginia Street. She approached the city about whether she could have a parking easement. Her property has 0 parking and there's no parking along the street. She's directly adjacent to the Public Works facility. She asked the city if the city would give her an easement, which the city said it would, but she also asked if the city would actually deed her that land. So there's a triangular parcel of approximately 700 square feet, and so there is an administrative plat that would be in the process in the deed so long as the city council were agreeable to deeding her that land. So basically it would be a parking place for her house.
This would be the second reading.
Correct. So this is just the first reading. All this does is schedule this for a hearing. You get all the full materials and maps and everything like that with the staff report that goes with the second reading.
Anybody have any questions for Alan?
No, go ahead, Rod.
Yes, we have had a discussion about this.
Just last week.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. And do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 3, series 2020, an ordinance approving the conveyance by general warranty deed of a portion of the city-owned property known as 200 West Colorado Boulevard.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Last chance for discussion and questions. Hearing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Jeff Candell.
Yes.
Jeff Carmen.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Okay, now we'll move down to our ordinance second readings. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 1, series 2020, an ordinance amending rates and charges for water and sewer service and making conforming amendments to the Idaho Springs Municipal Code.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? We had a pretty good discussion in our work session. Kind of give us an update of what it would look like.
I just want to clarify for my own thinking, because it's very complex. And the gentleman that presented was very professional. Some of it I did understand, some of it I didn't understand, but so far we've had, like in 2019, if we combine the two, we had a 31% increase for the water and the sewer. And now we're proposing over the next 3 years, each year to have a 17% increase combining the water and sewer, which would be an additional 51% over the 31% or whatever was done in 17-18, because he wasn't quite sure what that number was. Is that correct? Or are we?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Just keep in mind as you add the percentages together, they're not on top of each other. So the water percentage is on the water bill, the wastewater percentage on the wastewater bill. If you add the two together, you're kind of over accentuating it. It's the percentage of the combined bill would be somewhere in between the percentage increases of water and wastewater.
When you get your bill, it says water and sewer. And you're saying that the sewer is not going to be the 8%?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just the adding the 22% on top of the 8%. That's what I was reacting to. That the water went up 22 earlier in 19, and wastewater went up, I believe, 9% earlier in 19. So the impact to the customer is somewhere in between 9 and 22%. But moving forward, it would be 9% is being proposed for water, 8% for wastewater.
Right.
So everything else being
It's
equal.
not 17%, it's like 8.9.
You got it.
You get that, Art?
No, I don't.
He's talking about the impact of the entire bill,
Right,
because you have water, sewer.
correct.
So the combination of both doesn't reflect the percentage for the whole bill. It would be the average between the two is how much the whole bill would go up.
So I could take 17% and divide it by 2?
In simple terms.
Yeah.
Okay, that's still, okay, but then that's 3 years in a row, so I can add all those together. So we're at 27%?
I'm running that analysis that would kind of go back to 16, so let me finish that, and I can certainly update you on that, but I don't want to quote anything on the spot.
Do you want to hear that information before we take a vote?
I do.
Okay. So we will hold on to that. And then let's go ahead and, so we're gonna hold that, come back to that, table it for a moment, and let's move on to ordinance number 2. Do I have a motion?
I would move that we approve ordinance number 2, series 2020, an ordinance approving a loan from the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority, authorizing the forms and execution of the loan agreement and governmental agency bond to evidence such loan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Now we'll have discussion on the loan. Anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none. Diane, roll call please.
Michael Helen,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Owen,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right, are you ready yet, Andrew?
Almost.
Almost. We'll go ahead and we'll move down to our staff reports. Andy?
Mayor and Council, you have my report before you with no request for action.
All right. Any questions for Andy? Andy gave us a list of things that he's been doing with John, myself, and others. And if anybody has any questions about that, we can be willing to answer them. Hearing none.
What happened to the grant?
Which grant? So that grant was for building the trail. I'm going to let, I just found out more about it today, but I'm going to let Alan speak on that for the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park grant and what kind of happened with that.
So yeah, we received, Alan Bucky, Development Planner, we received news last week we did not get the grant. There was a lot of confusion from what we understand, I think, maybe about what the scope of the project was, and we saw some comments when they approve or don't approve something. When they don't approve something, they'll give you a list of the reasons why. It seems sort of to staff that maybe they didn't understand the scope of the project. Either way, we didn't receive the money. So at this point, we're sort of regrouping to kind of figure out where to go forward, but we did not get the grant. $250,000.
A lot of it they were considering, and I looked at the document, was they were basing a lot on the gondola being part of it, which the gondola has nothing to do with building the trail system. But they kept on referring to, what if the gondola doesn't happen? What if the gondola, and through the read of it, I could tell that they were considering that the gondola had to happen for this trail system to be successful. So
They were completely separate. The section we were working on was the first 2 miles. That was just to go up to the top of that peak. It was completely independent of the gondola, but for whatever reason, they had a really hard time understanding it was a separate project.
we don't need the gondola to build that first 2.5 miles of trail. It has nothing to do with what we were trying to do for the first phase.
So we're gonna have to regroup and talk to Comba at this point, figure out where to go. It's a pretty big blow, I think.
Is there a chance for another round?
Sure. There's always a chance for another.
In the fall, yes.
Right, it would be another
I think
year.
that's our intent is to.
Of course, there's always GoCo too. Right? You could talk to GoCo or CB. So sure, but there's some at least for this spring and summer.
Any other questions for Andy? All right. Thank you, Andy. City Clerk?
Mayor and council, I'd first like to draw everyone's attention to the cemetery map.
Yes.
Finally trained and was put up and.
It's great. It's cool.
I never realized it was flat.
Just for everybody, I questioned the green wall. The blue chairs, the gray chairs, whatever.
Diana, I don't know if you explained the source of that to the audience before or not.
And the new members. A gentleman approached me, I think it was last year, or maybe the winter before, whose wife passed away and wanted to bury her in our cemetery, and it was cold, hard ground, and our public works department had to dig the grave, and he wanted to pay them, additional money, and I said, well, that's not quite the thing to do. And he took this picture with a drone and printed it and brought it to the city for us to use, hopefully for forever and ever. It's in a plexiglass glass, so you can write on it and use it as a reference. It's already been used as a reference. I had some lady come in one time looking for a grave where the city had mistakenly sold her lot or her space, so they created a space, but she didn't have any information on the lot number or where it was, and I pulled out this map and she pointed right to it. Sometimes it just takes that visual.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Any other questions and no action for Andy or Diane? We have a staff report from the chief. Again, he was sick tonight and informed me he couldn't be here. Also, Dan is sick. Is that correct? Or
Yes.
Dan is sick. And under water and wastewater, there's no request for action. And we'll do public works. John?
Mayor and council, you have my staff report in front of you, and I do have a request for action to order the skid steer that council approved for the 2020 budget from Home Equipment.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
I move to approve $46,160 to Home Equipment Company for 2019 324G skid steer loader from IM 21006. 025.
Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call?
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Canal.
Yes.
Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Frank Bailey.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
And I would just like to thank you, John, and all the crews who are out there and trying to keep that big load of snow that we got over the past several days. And I know you are doing the best you can out there. So thank you very much. Stay safe.
Thank you.
All right, now we're gonna go back. You ready, Andrew?
I'm ready. So I looked at the typical customer, residential customer bill using that metric that I put up there. So in 2016, before the rate actions have been taken, since then, the typical residential bi-monthly bill, same usage assumptions I had before, was $144.50. And just a kind of reminder, the rates in place now in 2019, that typical bill is $184. So because we had some real structure changes in 19, that 22% didn't get applied just all in that, say, residential customer, there was some rate design. So just kind of looking back to say, the typical bill in 19 compared to the typical bill in 2016, it was a $40, a little less than $40 bi-monthly increase over that 3-year period. So just, to the point you're making, kind of that percentage does grow. That represents a little more than a 27% increase over 3 years for a typical customer, an average of about 9% a year. Combines water and wastewater, and those are illustrative bills using actual rates in place. The proposed 2020 rates that are being discussed would take that $184 and increase it by roughly $15 to $199, again, every other month. So that represents water, wastewater combined about a little more than 8% increase over the bill today. And takes that cumulative now 4 years between 16 to 2020. It's roughly, I'll call it 38%, or about, again, a little more than 9% a year. So that kind of tracks through. And it makes it difficult, that's why we use the difficult bill for this comparison, because when we do rate structure changes, they influence or impact different users differently. And that was the case in 19. So for residential, typical customer, the impact was much lower than what the overall system revenue need change was.
How many thousand gallons on that?
10,000 for water and 6,000 for sewer.
So the commercial rate increased more than that.
On balance, and the higher using residential as well, because as we looked at the tiers and the allocations, we modified those. And commercial customers went through the same tiers. So if you were a large commercial user, the previous structure, even if you were an efficient user, your bill kind of went up. So there were a fair amount of changes that just sort of happened across the board, and it's difficult to just say your bill went up this much. Some commercial customers, their bill, may have gone up less than 22%. Others went up more than, and that's kind of where that average comes in.
All right, so for the 2016 to nothing, you said went up about $40 a month.
Bi-monthly, so 2 months, yeah, $20 a month.
$20 a month, which is $180 a year, $120 a year.
$120 a year.
Right, and then this year it's going to go up $90. Next year it's going to go up $90. Next year it's going to go up $90. Probably a little more than that. So we're talking about $270, $390 in the next 4 years, including the one that went in.
That sounds maybe a little bit on the high side.
Well, 90 times 3 is 270, and 120 that it already went up.
Yeah, and I may the math it may be losing me a little bit on, but just say keeping it simple, this 8-9%. At $200, that a 10% increase would be $20 bi-monthly or $10 a month. And there's some compounding, but I'm trying to average that a little bit, round up to say 10% today.
I like my simple numbers. So I don't need the computer. Thank you.
Are you saying yearly when you were saying how much?
No, I was saying
Monthly
$15
per month
per bill
per bill?
is $90 a month, a year.
$90 a year. Right.
And the one that before that was $40, $20 a month. That's $120. So 120 and 270 is $390, almost $400
For the year.
over the next. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I know it's complex. I don't have the experience that some of the other folks here have as far as the cost of equipment and debt ratio and all that stuff. If I had more time, I could understand more of it. But when I break it down to the figures, I find it expensive. What's the alternative plan? I don't know. That's what I would ask you, not me. Because I would think there's other municipalities we could look at that. I'm assuming you did. I don't know. I'm just looking at this raw number. I'm looking at the guy that goes down to work, down the hill every day and comes back, and can he afford this rate increase? And I know the necessity of it from what you said technically. But I'm looking at the out-of-pocket expenditures. It's a lot of money to the average guy. The commercial people could take on some of it.
And as I've said before, due to a previous administration that did nothing for our capital improvement and nothing about our rate, we're taking it on our backs. The community is taking it on our backs now. Over 6 years, nothing was done.
I could see that.
So everybody should go back to the previous administration and say, what the heck were you thinking? Because it's been dumped on this administration.
If I knew who they were, I would be glad to.
I'll give you his name.
Okay, appreciate it.
No problem.
All right.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
This is pretty standard for Colorado and the United States, especially small systems, having to keep up with regs
And we have a sewer plant.
everything. So
That's what the bigger increases
That's
are
all
for,
you
is
know.
because of the capital improvement.
And what people need to understand is water and sewer costs money to give it to their house. That's, I don't know what the alternative is either.
I don't either, I understand that, but you know, if somebody has a budget, and I hope everybody does their budget, and they bring home $500 a month or a week, whatever it is, that $15, which doesn't seem like a lot, has to come from somewhere. He has other fixed, he has a mortgage, he has a car payment, he has insurance payment. So where's it gonna come from? Food? Maybe a night out with the wife? So, you know, that's not an easy deal for some people. So I understand what's going on all over the United States. I also understand that, what you said too, but I just think we gotta be more creative.
And that's why I've been expressing how critical it is to get more users on this line. And that means some housing. When we get more users to share the cost, our costs come down.
Don't tell me about housing, because you're gonna get more expenses as well, but make sure we put that in there too.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on it or council?
Okay.
I might just add that the city's put a lot of time and effort into evaluating many alternatives for what to do to do an expansion, to deal with the high flows and loads, and what we are doing now is the most cost-effective approach out of many alternatives. So we've been working on this for years and years, and what being built now is truly the most cost-effective approach compared to some of the other alternatives. I mean, we are not gold plating or providing the city with a Cadillac. We're doing what's required to meet regulations, but there has been significant effort in evaluating and trying to make sure that we are making the best use of the residents' dollars for this plan. So I do feel strongly that what's being done now is the best solution for the city.
I don't doubt you guys didn't do your homework. I'm not questioning that at all. I'm just questioning numbers.
Okay. I need a roll call, please.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jeff Harmon.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
No.
Jim Clark.
No.
Okay. Motion passes 5-2. Committee reports. Anybody have any committee reports? We'll tell the public we had a really good goal setting exercise last weekend with all the council there. Lots of good participation. This is a good outcome. So we will have that in writing and posted what our next year to 2 year goals are. Goals that we set today. Also, we got our sales tax report here. Again, very happy to see the sales tax going to be December up 10.3%. That's good and something good to be excited about. Anything else, council? All right, it is 7:43, meeting adjourned. Now we will go into the public forum. As we did probably 4 to 6 weeks ago at Carlson Elementary, open up to the community to ask questions, to ask the council, to ask our community development person. We don't have our city attorney here tonight because of the weather, but we are open to answer the questions so that you are fully informed of what's going on, process, and that you're not getting information from people in the community or Facebook. So, question time. And
I was at the meeting last week about selling Carlson and maybe having the little kids go over to the high school. And it was, superintendent said that the city of Idaho Springs and CDOT have said that they will provide a bridge, maybe even from the rec center over. And how was that determined? I mean,
our Region 1 director, Steve Harrelson, probably 4 years ago, when we did the eastbound Peak Period Shoulder Lane and the new bridge went in, we felt that wasn't, it served the purpose. It had a walking path on it, but we always talk about development with the school on the other side of the highway and how we connect the two sides of the highway together. And he was well supportive of providing a pedestrian bridge for a development, and once a development starts happening on that side of the highway, for the city of Idaho Springs and whatever development was going to happen, to give a safe passage for people to be walking to town, back to the other side. There was a study done, when was that 240 Hub study done, Alan?
2016, because it was just wrapping up when I
Well,
came
those
here.
concepts of things that would go over there, Candy, and that's where that conversation came up. As of now, I actually have a meeting with our new Region 1 director tomorrow. The good thing about the switch and getting a new Region 1 director, the Region 1 director that promised the city this bridge is now the chief engineer at CDOT. So he's more of a decision-making person. And I have talked to him within the last week, and that opportunity is still on the table for the city of Idaho Springs.
so that's, that would be built, whether it's private development or school district development,
Yes,
it'll be built no matter what.
correct.
Is that in writing or anything yet?
It is not in writing yet, no. But that's one of the discussions I'll be having tomorrow with Mike Keltman.
Yeah, and so would that be just CDOT or would that be the city and CDOT, or who would pay for that?
The CDOT would pay for it.
Just
Not unless
CDOT?
they change their mind. The promise is that CDOT would pay for it.
Okay.
And it would just be pedestrian only. There would be no vehicular.
Okay.
It would be wide enough that we could get a skid steer on it or some kind of plow it.
So that'll go ahead whether the school district moves or whatever, whoever buys it.
The
or whatever.
development
That'll
plan
be just
comes to
done.
the city. If it gets accepted and a development is moved forward, yes, I firmly believe that the promise would still happen.
And do you have any time frame or anything? After the meeting, maybe you'll have a time frame for this?
Until the city receives a development plan for the development over there, I don't think that it would be promised until we have something to present to CDOT.
Oh.
Yeah. They're just not going to do it on the assumption that it's going to happen. They're going to wait until something's going on. More questions?
I have a
Andy?
question. I'm sorry.
Two candies.
Candies, Lucky Night. So I know that you guys have gone over this at nauseum, but I still can't get clear in my head how much the wastewater treatment plant costs and how much you got for grants.
So we received, and Michael just left, didn't he? So we received $2 million grants for construction. For project 1, $1 million, project 2, $1 million. And then we got, Andy, how much in engineering and design grants? 165.
It's about 800,000.
800 for
design and engineering.
For the design and engineering
grants.
grants.
Close to 800,000.
That's our grant, and that's money we don't have to pay. And what is,
Well, it's a match, so we would have to come up with 50%.
oh, that's a match?
Yes, all these grants are matched. And what we did on the $1 million is we were able to use our loans to leverage against applying for the grant.
On both of them?
On both of them, yes.
So what's the actual cost with this?
It's going to be around $9 million. Construction.
Well, I've seen 8, I just couldn't get a handle on it.
And that's why we're doing the GMP process. And I wish Michael was here to explain it a little bit better. But this is kind of doing engineering. What's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for?
Value engineering.
Value engineering, so that we can start designing it and be able to design it down, so to save us some money. That's why it was set up that way, so it wasn't just a contract number. We were very satisfied with the company that we hired to do the project, and they were going to work with the engineering and get value in engineering out of it.
So in my mind, once again, sorry about this, 9 million minus 2 is 7 minus the 800,000. That's kind of our cost, right?
And that's why we used $6 million worth of $8 million. So $3 million loans.
Okay.
Okay. Then you have your 2 grants on top of it. That's $8 million, and then there's some extra cost in there for engineering and design.
Okay.
So that's how we get up a little over $9 million.
That helps because I haven't been able to.
I'm sorry?
I haven't been able to get my head around the actual.
There's also the other improvements that are taking place.
All the works, right?
The water lines, Chicago Creek, how much was that?
Oh, no, that has nothing to do with this.
Yeah,
This
that
is
was-
just,
In my mind, that was.
But I'm saying the water
Yeah.
rates are based on other,
not on that water line. We moved that out so it didn't raise our water rates to a 22% increase. When I saw that, I put a squash on that and said, absolutely not, I would not put that on this community. And that's how we put that, we pushed it out. And we're gonna do, it was called something else, but what I call it is slip lining, being able to coat the inside of the pipe to prevent and to make sure that we don't have any ionine, which is infiltration.
And we pushed that out to.
24, what was it, Andrew? 24?
24
through 26.
So 4 years.
24 or 26.
24
It's over a few year period.
It's over
It's not just
a period
a
of
project
time.
in 1 year.
All right.
And that right now is a $3.5 million project. Probably in 4 years, it's going to be a $4.5 million project.
Thanks for clarifying that. I have struggled with that number a lot. You know, I've sat through all those. Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Clarification, Candy?
So where did, again, I was at this meeting, where did the idea come from? I understand you were at a meeting at the superintendent's office, and she said that, and I don't know who else was there, but it was discussed taking Carlson out of the community. I mean, we took the high school and look what happened. Nobody came to the high school. They're down at least 450, 500 kids at high school. Carlson only has 150 kids, and it just seems to me like when you take a community school away, you lose a lot.
Okay. And I want
So
to express
I
to
wonder
you
where that came from.
that school and that property, along with the football field, does not belong to the city.
Right.
And they can do whatever they want with it.
Okay.
They asked how we felt about it in the city. It's just another idea. This idea was kicked around by me 5 years ago. And the same thing, we don't want our kids walking over there, across that bridge, in the nowhere zone over there. And that was the response I got. Now that Karen Quamback has come on, it is just another thing of thinking outside of the box. Would this work? And that's what the community meeting was all about, is seeing what the community input would be. You know, how would it be supported, if it would be supported or not supported. And that's all that was just an exercise to engage the community to get input. There's no decision. And with that, Candy, they don't even know whether it would be cost efficient.
Right.
You know, it may be better to just remodel Carlson where it sits and be done with it. So there's a lot of process that's going to go on with this.
And where does it stand with the bus barn property, trading that property with the football field?
With the property that city owns within the
where
football
does
field,
that
we're working
stand?
on that. Maybe Alan can give a little bit of an update on that.
Yeah, Alan T. about Community Development Plan. We're talking about a land swap. Long story short,
Yeah.
land exchange. Basically, long story short, when this whole thing was happening, the city realized that we had a bunch of right-of-way there. They crisscrossed, and it was purely coincidence that the amount of the square footage of right-of-way was almost exactly the square footage of the bus barn area. So we told the school district that we weren't willing to just give away land that was zoned parks, but we were willing to work with them on a land swap. So what I'm understanding at this point is that from what I've heard rumors, is that the school board has given the direction to go ahead and move forward. I'm waiting on an application to be signed. When I get that application signed, then we'll be taking that to a public hearing for the rezoning in the land swap. And right now, the ball is in the school district's court.
And what this does is it's a great opportunity not only for our community to have and keep green space that everybody's been yelling for, but also to have a park, almost an acre, bigger than Courtney Riley Cooper Park, to put the skateboard park that our kids need something to do, a basketball court, and some open space for people to play frisbee and run around in. You know, I've heard this community loud and clear that we wanted a green space, and what better situation, right in the middle of downtown, and right in front of the rec center. You could walk right out of the rec center, walk right down into the park and play.
And the city has the money to do this?
So we're still working on this, but basically the way that it works is when you do a subdivision, see there with my voice, I'm doing the best I can. When you do a subdivision, you have to do something called schools and parks and open space dedications or fees. And long story short, what that means is based on the amount of your land, there's a certain percentage of the land that you have to either give or you have to give the assessed value of that land. So part of the arrangement that we've worked out with the school district is that whoever buys that Gold Digger Field property, that there's going to be a note added to the plat that they're going to have to pay X amount of money for schools and parks fees, and that school and parks fees will be used. It won't probably pay for the entire thing, but it will be a good jump start to help us start putting some improvements in.
And to build parks, we've got lots of avenues. We can go back to GOCO, we can go to Parks and Wildlife. We also have things like the Tony Hawk Foundations. There's lots of foundations. You talk about skateboard parks, and they like that.
And I don't know exactly what that number is because it's 10%. It's 10% of the land, and I think it's about 1.5 acres to 2.5. So whatever that is, and whatever the value of that is, that's the money that they would be required to give us. So it's a requirement. In order for them to plat, they have to do that. So I haven't done the math on that. It's a sizable amount of money. Is it enough to build an entire park? Probably not. But one of the other things we're talking about is whether we can use some of those existing features of Gold Digger, the bleachers and the scoreboard signs, and whether we can incorporate those into a Gold Digger park. Whether we use it's just ideas. Whether we use the bleachers for skateboard elements or whether we use the scoreboard signs as signs for the park. We're trying to be able to start preserving some of that stuff into what we're now calling Gold Digger Park. I don't know if that's what we're going to call it. But does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. I don't have the firm numbers for you yet.
So on the same topic of that location where the bus barn is, do you think that there's any contamination there?
There would have to be environmental assessments done on it for sure. I don't know when the last time they've done it, but really before they can sell it, they'll probably have to do that, include that, so that it would be disclosed in the land trade or exchange.
Yeah, that's something I've talked to a little bit about the school district. We don't know exactly what the arrangement's going to be. One of the concerns that I have is what I don't want to see happen is we work out this arrangement and then they get this piece of property that they can sell off and now this bus barn just sits there for who knows how long. So I want to make sure that there's some kind of arrangement, that there's a deal, but when the bus barn will actually go away, how long until we get the park, and there'll have to be some kind of arrangement, because I agree there's probably going to be some kind of environmental contamination, whether it's oil or gas. Probably a good reason to make it a park versus maybe where the kids drink their water from. So probably the best thing you could do there was to do a park. You probably do have some
not to mention the environmentals that we do to make sure of what kind of soil is there. Whether it can be done, we might find out is you remove that bus barn and you can't do anything here. So the city, before all the land swap, exchange would happen. We would do our due diligence to make sure that we weren't accepting a piece of property that we were going to be stuck with.
Thank you.
At the time, the county owned that property initially, the Bus Barn property, and it was signed over to this Clear Creek School District. At that time, I don't remember anything. There's only one triangle piece of property that I know that the city owns, and that's towards the gate.
The triangle piece of property actually is CDOT property.
Well, whatever.
And it was, from what we understand, it was already vacated at
Actually, you were doing just fine. The triangle, we don't know exactly when. Long story short.
The triangle is irrelevant to my point. The point is that the county signed over the Bus Barn to Clear Creek School District, and there was no mention of Idaho Springs in there.
Correct. So the school district wants to be able to sell off Gold Digger Field to somebody. We don't know who that is. Gold Digger Field, if you can picture the way all the blocks are laid out in Idaho Springs, those blocks were all laid out, and then it was never developed, so they built Gold Digger Field there. So there's still city right-of-ways crisscrossing Gold Digger Field. So Gold Digger Field is not one big piece of property owned by the county. It's a couple of little chunks, and that right-of-way that the city has, we're saying that's an X amount. I think it's like 38,000 square feet. That's the same size as the Bus Barn. So the arrangement is we're going to vacate those right-of-ways that are crisscrossing Gold Digger Field if you give us 38,000 square foot of land, which is about the size of the Bus Barn.
Because Gene, the announcer's booth sits on city property. So if the city said we're going to widen that road.
It wasn't city property.
I'm sorry?
It wasn't, unless this was done in the last 10 years.
Doesn't the plat say that the announcer's booth sits on city property?
I'm not sure about the announcer's booth. If you, I can show you a map, and there's a right-of-way that runs right through the middle, cuts Gold Digger Field right in half, and that's city-owned.
These are road plats, like Idaho Streets that runs from east to west.
Yeah, do you know it to be different?
Pardon?
Do you know it to be different than that?
I can't hear you.
Do you know that it's different than what Alan's explaining?
Yes, because I signed the papers, but I mean, you guys have to do the research. I've been down this road before, so.
Okay. Yeah, and we will do our due diligence to make sure.
Yes, I'm sure you will. So.
We certainly, when we went through this process a couple of months ago, the school district actually found some deeds for some vacations that occurred there. So we didn't have as much land as we originally thought we did, but after the school district did their due diligence, they did confirm that the city does have right-of-way running through that park.
How fast could you pull that? Could you pull that up?
I could pull it up as fast as it could take to get the camera turned on and get the laptop fired up. I can show you. No, it won't take very long. If you want to hang on a second, we can get it. That's good. Yeah, I think I'm a very visual person, and it's really hard to describe this, so it'd be better just to show it.
So while we're waiting for them to get that fired up, more questions?
Sorry, but does the city have any requests for new building, new condos, new apartments?
There's nothing at the city that has been proposed. There's nothing as far as of today that the school district has had any offers on it or any proposals on it.
No, I'm not just meaning the school district. I mean the east part, any place in the city.
Oh, there is nothing on the table. The only thing that we have working right now is our affordable housing project on Colorado Boulevard. There was a public meeting for the Habitat for Humanity last week or 10 days ago. There was about 4 weeks ago the one down behind Marion's, the mobile home park there. But as far as Alan can answer more on that. As far as I know, nobody has submitted, proposed, or given any kind of idea.
I'm sorry, I was only half listening.
No, he was just asking what development projects are being proposed. If you could maybe just give a high-level overview of what's happening today.
Yep. Just a second. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. Clear Creek. Blair. Can everybody still hear me? My voice is going down. So the projects that are active, obviously the Riverbend project is what you see under construction. That's the 47 unit workforce housing project. There was a recent community meeting in regard to a Habitat for Humanity project just right behind the Elks building, and that would be 8 townhouse units. They just did the community meeting, so I would expect that I would see them making a submittal pretty soon. There is a...
could you just explain the aspect of the community meeting and our requirements and the purpose of the community meeting?
Sure. So when you're wanting, except for single family residential, most projects in the city require something called a final development plan, and that's where you show the architecture, the landscaping, all of the exact way that project looks. And before you can even make your application to do that final development plan, you have to do a community meeting. It's a requirement for the code. We had one last week, which I thought was it was very productive. It was a real good reason why we have community meetings, because there was comments from the community about the Habitat for Humanity project and about the ice from cars coming down Wall Street, and whether they could pull the buildings a little further away and maybe put in some podiums to keep cars from hitting the buildings. And there was a comment about running stairs from the buildings up to a higher parking lot. All that matters is there was some really good dialogue in regard to design, but that's the only community meeting recently.
I understand that was only publicized, letters sent out to just the people around.
So for any rezoning, final development plan, any kind of public process, there's a requirement that you have to mail letters to everybody within 300 feet of the property. You have to put signs up on the property, and then we also put something on the Facebook page and on the community development page.
Is that the same as the city website, the community development page, or is that?
Yeah, but generally what will happen is there'll be an announcement from the community development page, and I'll usually have John put in an announcement on the main page as well. So generally, if you go on the page and you'll see there's these little sliders on the top of pictures, there'll usually be announcements about an upcoming meeting. You can click those, but the best place to get information, any project that's happening, that's active at all, you'll find it on the community development page. If you go to the City of Idaho Springs, on the left-hand side, you'll see a box there that says links, and you'll see community development. If you click there, anything that's active, whether it's stopped in the process or not, all of the information is uploaded. I'm sorry, I had throat surgery, so I'm still struggling here. Everything is uploaded to a file, and you'll be able to download all that information. That's the best place to get information. Any more about that? Oh, so you had some other questions about projects. Here's what I know that's happening. We've got the Riverbend, which is the 47-unit complex that's under construction right now. We have the health clinic, which was just recently approved. I don't know when that's going to get built. They've done a bunch of survey work. I think they're working on getting grants, but I would assume that's going to happen pretty quick. There is the Habitat for Humanity Townhouse project, which I'm waiting to get a formal submittal on. My understanding is they want to have that done within a year. So you would see 8 new townhouses there.
Excuse me for interrupting, but so once they make their formal submittal, and this applies to all.
I'll get some water real quick because I have no more place.
Once the formal submittal is made, can you just explain the process that happens from there typically with the project? What the formal submittal is made?
Process in general?
Yeah, just at a high level, the public process.
I mean, whether it's a rezoning or a final development plan, what happens is that when I get the formal submittal, it goes out to different agencies. So depending on what the proposal is, usually it'll go out to Public Works, Police Department, Clear Creek County, anybody that's an interdepartmental agency. When we have community meetings, I also tell people that if you're interested in these projects, send me an email and I'll put you on an email blast list. So it will go up. So what happens on whether it's a rezoning, a final development plan, or anything else, it goes out for a review period of 2 weeks. All these different agencies then submit their comments to me, and I turn around a letter to them, giving them, thank you, John, giving them a position on what our position is on it, or what their issues are. And this process goes back and forth until one of a few things happen. Either they say, I want to go to hearing without staff report, which does happen and is going to happen, or they can go to a public hearing with our support, or they can go to a public hearing with some of our support as long as they make some changes. Then that notification happens, and that is when it's ready for a planning commission and a city council, which are both public hearings. There'll be a notification that goes out to everybody within 300 feet of the property. There'll be signs that will go up. There'll be a newspaper posting. There'll be a posting on the Facebook page, on the web page, and on the community development page. What'll happen then is that I will write a report to the planning commission and with some sort of recommendation on the project. And then the planning commission will have a public meeting and they'll make a recommendation to the council, who are the people that ultimately approve these projects. Does that describe the process to everybody? Work for you?
Another thing that you need to understand, there's two processes with that. There's two ordinances that have to be approved. The first ordinance will be when and if a project comes to us, an ask to go to a public hearing. The first ordinance cannot be denied. We cannot, as a council and a city and a government, cannot deny a public hearing unless we want to get sued. So that will come off, that we have to have a public hearing. A public hearing will be set. And then when it comes to the second reading, that's when the final decision, recommendations from planning staff, from planning commission will be made to the city, and then a vote will take place at that time.
Is there any reason why you could not approve?
I'm sorry?
Is there any reason that you could not approve a project?
We cannot, of course, there's all kinds of reasons we cannot approve a project, but we have to allow a public hearing. A lot of people are gonna, I'm sure that the Pine Slope project's gonna come to the council, and the first reading is, will the city allow me to have a public process and a public hearing? And the council, even if all of us voted no, it still happens, okay? And what I question that with our city attorney is, then why are we doing the dog and pony show? If we can't deny it, why do we even do it? Per state statute, we have to go through the process.
For the first
reading, yes.
Okay, sorry, I've got some weirdness going on here. Okay, back to the projects that we had. So I talked about the health clinic. I talked about the riverbend. I talked about the Habitat for Humanity. The other projects that I'm expecting stuff to come in soon. There's a project on Pine Slope called Soda Creek Highlands. There's been a ton of go back and forth with that. The applicant has requested to go to hearing. Right now we have a hearing date. The notification hasn't gone out yet, but we'll be talking to them next week. And the planning commission hearing for that is scheduled for Wednesday, March 4th. And the city council meeting for that will be on the 27th of April. So that's going to be a biggie. They just made their formal application. It's being reviewed by agencies. Staff is in the process right now of writing a letter to the applicant with our position. That letter, waiting for the city administrator to review that, and that letter will go out by the end of this week. And you'll be able to see that letter posted on the case file for that project.
Did they get the special district that they were asking for?
They did. They went through a special district kind of separately in July, if I remember correctly. I think it was passed. Metro District. But just because the service district passed doesn't mean at all that the project has to be denied or approved. Completely separate. The special district is just the funding mechanism if the project got approved.
So I know that there was a lot of uproar about the city council approving the service agreement. So the service agreement is something that the developer would use to pursue a metro district to help pay for the infrastructure. If the council said, this is another one, if we all voted no, we would be sued. The reason for that is when we were asked for a service district to pursue a metro district, we don't know what the plan is. We don't know if he wants to put 2 houses up there or 10,000 houses up there. So for us to deny him to be able to pursue it would be illegal on our part, and we would get sued.
Okay.
Just to clarify, what's going before the planning commission in March with Soda Creek Highlands is a rezoning.
Correct.
That's not the final development plan. The first thing that has to happen with that project for the developer to do what he wants to do up there would require a rezoning.
They have to upzone it. property zone R1 right now allows single-family residential on 6,000 square foot lots. That's what they're allowed to do right now, depending on their engineering and the traffic, however many else, what they're proposing to do. And there's still some question about how many units they're asking for. But they want to rezone it to allow multifamily. Some number between 250 and 300, I don't know yet. That's what they're asking to do. So what would be going to the planning commission would be that proposal to rezone to allow an upzone. If that got approved, then they would have to do a final development plan, which is all of the design of the project. It's a long process.
And just to clarify, planning commission is a recommending body.
Correct.
So planning commission would hear the developer's proposal, staff's recommendations, and then planning commission would make a recommendation to city council. And that first reading with city council is, what was that date, later in March, right?
Yeah, it's like,
And that's the first reading of the
all that
ordinance.
is scheduled for a hearing.
Yeah,
That's the 9th, isn't it? Right?
no, I think it's the
23rd then?
23rd of
Okay, so
March.
23rd of March.
Yeah, be the first reading to schedule the public.
The
hearing.
actual formal hearing would be April 27th. That would be the final hearing, that whether it's 1 or 10 hearings, that's when it will be heard. There's still some question about whether they're going to go in March. So I don't know for sure, because there's going to be a discussion I think that's going to happen at the end of the week. But right now, from what I understand, they want to go to hearing on March 4th, hell or high water.
You have a question about that project, Rachel?
Yes.
Okay.
If they didn't rezone, just as the current zoning is, how many units could they build up there?
Well, that's the other question.
Yeah,
right?
they have to have 6,000 square foot for a lot.
I've sort
It's
of,
been platted for 40,
I know that they can fit 45.
45 has
They
been
platted it out to show
It's never filed,
45.
but it was platted.
Now, they've used a general number of 6,000 square foot lots, and I've asked for them to show me how many they can fit. I haven't gotten that, but we do have a plot for 45. So we know that they've been able to design it for 45 lots. Now, I don't know about all the engineering and the road and engineering and all that, but that's how it's been platted.
Plat was done back
It
in
was kind of
2007.
approved, yeah.
2007.
So what happened was that plat went to a public hearing. There's basically two parts in the plat process: a preliminary plat and a final plat. The preliminary plat went to public hearing and
Say that real fast.
No,
Preliminary plat, hearing.
my voice is only going to hold on a little bit longer. So the preliminary plat went to public hearing, I believe, in 2006, and that was approved. And and there was a bunch of requirements that were added for the final plat, a lot of infrastructure things. That the final plat is required to go to a public hearing for the final approval within 3 years, and it never went. So that plat was never technically approved. So there's an old plat called the Soda Creek something.
Bristlecone.
Soda, not Bristlecone. Before that, it's like the Soda Creek something or other that was for like 25 lots, and that's the only one that holds right
Soda
now.
Hill Estates.
Soda Hill Estates, thank you. So that's some number less than 45. I think it was like 25, but they never completed the platting process. So the Bristlecone's plat doesn't matter.
Do you happen to know, just for perspective purposes, how many homes are in Idaho Springs, loosely, or living situations? If you want to count them.
I'm gonna guesstimate, and right now my computer's being funky, so I can't. I think we have about 800 units. I think that's about right.
It's
800
including
houses.
apartments.
That's included housing.
I think that's
living situations.
Single family.
I think that's single family, and then there's
Apartments.
300 apartments or something. I don't have the exact number. It's somewhere around 1,000-ish. It's not an exact number. I'm just guesstimating. I'd do better for you, but when I try to get out of my computer, I'm getting this. So I don't know how to fix this, but it's about 1,000. give or take. Yeah, I'd have to go downstairs and boot up my computer. I'm not going to do that right now.
So this isn't going to bring up their
No, that's, yeah, I bet that. I want to finish the what I was saying. Yeah, I want to finish because I was finishing up with the projects.
Yeah.
There's a few more. So there's Soda Creek Highlands. That was the other project. I'm still waiting on a submittal for the Gold Digger Field thing, which I'll talk about in a second. There is a project that I think I'm going to get a submittal. I was supposed to get a submittal on Wednesday last week, but I'm expecting one soon because they gave me a check, which means they're going to submit for behind Marion's. There's the 15 trailers, 20 trailers.
26.
Yeah, okay, 26 trailers. That property is zoned residential too, so they would be able to build manufactured houses or duplexes on that property. I don't know how many, depends on how they design it. They want to rezone it to allow multifamily apartments and to do 69 units there. It would probably be 69 units in 3 buildings. I would be pretty confident that you're going to see that submittal happen because he bought the land and he's been doing a lot of background. I've been talking to him a lot about what he needs to submit. I would say very soon that you're going to see that come through. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed.
And again, if I'm correct, on that particular proposal from the developer, that would require rezoning to do it.
They have to rezone and do a final development.
So the first step would be the process
Yes.
to rezone to do what he's proposing to do.
Correct. There's two sets of public hearings. Actually, there's 2 sets of public hearings. They already did their community meeting. So the first thing, I think, well, actually, let me back up on that. I think they're going to do everything concurrently, and they're allowed to do that. So probably what they're going to do, my understanding, is that they're going to do the rezoning and the final development plan at the same time. So they will be coming in to ask for their property entitlements to upzone the property. At the same time that they're doing that, you would see the full design for the entire complex. They're not required to do that. But in this case, I think they're going to do that. So you're going to see, most likely, you're going to see the exact project, how they want to do it, come into hearing along with the rezoning at the same time. I don't know yet what the timeline is going to be.
Doesn't this rezoning have to go to the planning commission?
It would go to the planning commission first, both of them, the rezoning and the final development plan. So first, I would review it. It'll go back and forth until I think we've vetted out all whatever the issues are, and depending on whether or not we support it, right? They can go to hearing whether or not I recommend approval. So it goes through the city hall. We vet out all the issues. If we think ideally where we get to a place where we think all the issues are worked out, we take it to the planning commission. I will write a staff report that will go through Andy with my recommendations on the project. The planning commission will read that. They'll either agree or not agree. They'll make a recommendation to the council, who eventually then again would make the final decision whether it's approval or denial. So that project, I would say, pretty confident you're going to see that. There's the Argo project. They made their formal application 3 weeks ago. I turned around a letter to them last week. Most of their stuff is technical things around some road improvements, some stuff around lighting and things like that. Once we get to the point where we think that all of their issues are okay and it's ready to go, then that will be something that you'll also see coming in front of the planning commission and the city council. I would say you'll see that relatively soon, but it depends on how quickly they can get all these things turned around.
Remember, that's just the gondola.
Right.
Nothing else.
Right now, the trail is kind of dead in the water. Trying to figure out how to come up with it. Unless anybody wants to loan me $250,000. The trail right now is kind of dead in the water.
There's another project that has come to the council and has been approved, and there's been no activity on it. There was an RV park that was supposed to be built across from our sewer plant down on County Road 314. This was about a year. It's been over a year.
2.5 years ago.
It's been a while.
2.5 years ago.
But there has been nothing active on that project.
I know another project that I keep hearing that I'm not holding my breath on is south of the tunnels. There's a large piece of property there. I can't remember this, like Twin Tunnels.
Yeah,
and it's already zoned for multifamily. I guess no access and no infrastructure. He's been trying forever to try to build on this. I don't know if he can, but I've been hearing that forever. I want to go back to this Gold Digger Field. So we talked about this. I'm sorry I don't have a better graphic. I usually have a better one, but you guys saw my computer went completely on me. Okay, so this is Gold Digger Field. And if you see this right here, what's lit up, that's all counted, that's all city right away. So the school, I think it actually stops right about here. There's another private ownership that owns this, but this is all owned by, all of this is owned by the school board, except this here. This is now owned by the school too, but see this is right away. And this is also right away, and this is also right away. This amount of land, when we did the numbers on this amount of land, and this, does everybody see my little pointer? This little stripe here, and that little stripe comes very close to equaling that much land right there. So in order for them to rezone this or to do anything, they have to get the city on board to give them this here, and that's land that we own. So that's been our wedge, where we said, well, we're not going to just give the whole thing away to you, but what we will do is that we'll agree to give you this if you will give us this. That's how we got to where we're at. Does that make sense?
Now, can you show on Minor Street? Can you zoom that into us? Can you zoom that in?
Minor, where the concession stand is.
Where the concession stand is?
It's right in here.
Isn't there a piece?
Where the
that-
fridge is on the right way there, Al?
Yeah, I think it kind of eats over to here. This right here, this is new. This was discovered just recently when we were doing due diligence. The school board figured out they actually own this now. You can see that little thing comes up Clear Creek. So Clear Creek, so where it is, Clear Creek School District also owns this. So it's kind of like, I can do this right. If you watch my little laser pointer, this is all the stuff that the school district owns. And then we own all of this, which again ends up to be very close, almost exactly the same amount of area as the bus barn. So we said, if you'll give us the bus barn, we'll give you that right away, and then we'll take the bus barn and we'll make a park.
All right, more questions? Anything else?
I have another question about the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. How did that all come about? And it's been in design quite a while. I've seen all of that.
So what happened was, the city owns 450 acres of BLM property. It's deeded for recreational. It's not like the city could tell that, to take that and build something on it or sell it off. So there was a gentleman here in town that said, come here, I want to show you something. So we did a hike up in this mountain and got up there, and all of a sudden we see these big ramps and these guys on bicycles flying over. He said, they're already using this as downhill biking up here. What we should do is look at it and design some trails for the community and people coming into the community for not only downhill biking, but regular biking, hiking, picnicking, and use that area. So Alan got really excited because he's very about this about this park, and he started doing some digging around. And years ago, back in the
2006? No, 2010.
2010, there was actually something that had already been started and worked on. So we just took that and kind of rolled it out. We brought in Combo, which is the Colorado Outdoor.
Colorado Mountain Bike Association.
Yeah, Mountain Bike Association. Thank you. They came in and helped us, and that's where we started looking at how we could potentially design trails up in there and use it for the community purpose and community advantage. So we received a grant to help us do the design. We went out with an RFP and got some proposals of who would help us do that. It ended up being THK. Okay. And we went up and did design, got a grant, and went up and did design for the trails. So there's about 15 miles worth of trails that have been designed.
There's almost 2.5 miles of it that's actually been designed to the design level build.
To
And
design
then there's
build.
like another 12.5 miles that have been conceptually designed.
And that's what the grant was supposed to do, is help us build the 2.5 miles. worth of
First
trail
2.5 miles.
That we actually have plans ready to build.
When I talked to the guy from THK about my personal concern is the access and the parking. He told me there was none designed in. They didn't design any of that in. You know, I worry about people parking on Virginia Canyon and Virginia Street and anywhere they can.
And those are things that we very highly look at.
So there is road parking.
Tell me what that looks like then.
Well, we're still working with the Argo right now. But there's been a lot of work between the city and the Argo on this project. First thing is that the city didn't have any access into this park at all. The only way that we could get into this park is across the Argo property. So that's
Well,
how
there was another way to access it, but it would have cost us
It would have been-
$250,000
Yeah, it
to buy a piece of property.
wasn't a
back.
feasible access. It would have been going straight up Sizewell Mountain. So we worked with the Argo, and we've given them an access to put their gondola on our property, but at least or an access easement and they've given us access to come up through the Argo. Part of this agreement, we don't have the exact numbers worked out yet though, is that now that they're working on their gondola project, there's a certain number of parking spaces that they've identified. I don't want to get into all the details because this is going to go to public hearing. I think about 190 parking spaces that they've identified, and roughly 10 or 15 of these are going to be allocated right on the site for people to go into the mountain park that are parking there just for the mountain park. People that are wanting to do the whole thing are going to have some 190 parking spaces. So we're still working that out, but right now we've right on the site in front of the trailhead we have at least 10.
So you have 10 parking places in the Argo? Is that on yours? In the Argo?
We're going to be sharing parking spaces with them.
And so, for all these people that would be using this gondola, when the gondola goes up for the first time, are you going to have 190 parking places for all these people?
Yes.
You will?
Again, I don't want to get too much into details because this is about to go to public hearing. Okay?
We're probably already.
But there's a number, I can already hear Carmen having a commentary.
We're from the council.
There's a number of parking spaces that they've identified. I think it's like 190, and those are all going to be required when they put their gondola in.
We did a detailed traffic and parking study that we have to.
But I'm careful, we don't want to talk about this because this is the council, and we really don't need to talk about this outside of public hearing. Thank you for getting me off of that. It's not appropriate to talk about that right now. But yes.
The access to the park?
Sorry?
Can we talk about other access to the park?
Yeah, I think
how do you get there? I'd like to go up there right now. How do I get there?
We now have an easement. So if you wanted to, you could, it's not super easy, but there's two ways you could do it. If you know the Argo, there's that zigzaggy road. The city now has we now have a legal access easement up that road. So you could go up that way. You could start from the Argo, zigzag up that dirt road.
Does Candy Citizen can just go up there?
I would probably tell the Argo because there's a lot of things going on there, but yes, we have legal access to get on there now.
Okay.
So you could zigzag up that road to where the double eagle line is, and then you have to hop over a wooden fence and bushwhack up a valley. The other way that you could do it, it's no joke, Candy, it's not developed yet. You better have some good hiking shoes and some poles to climb that one. The other way you could do it is you could go up Virginia Canyon Road all the way up to Santa Fe Mine Road and then to Franklin Mine Road, and you know where there's like a kind of a informal parking lot up there, Franklin Mine Road. We're still working out our legal access arrangement from the top, but that's probably the easier way to get up there. As an individual citizen, you could probably get out. You could probably go up there. It's just that we have to, before it's actually formalized as park, I have to make sure that the access is bulletproof and legal. But you could basically drive. I don't think you'd get up there now, but you could drive up Virginia Canyon Road up to Franklin Mine Road, and there's a dirt lot right there. From that lot, you can just walk right over it. You're standing right on the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. Goes to the top.
Okay. Well, you can see what my concern is that we really. We're getting ready to go full speed ahead on a park, but we don't have. How does the average person get there, and where do I park?
Or emergency access.
And that would be the final development plan.
So the park. So the trail construction that we were trying to get the grant for, which I don't know what we're going to do yet, would have built actually formal trails. So we would have worked with the Argo. We would have had probably some signs go up there. And there would have actually been some formal parking spaces and a formal trail going up to the top. That's still the plan. I just got to figure out where.
These are trails that are going to be large. They're going to be developed.
Well, this is really no joke to me. My father wants his ashes spread up there. He walked up there every day for 40 years. It's important to me.
Well, it's important to me too. I've already told my wife.
Your chain. I really want to know.
I've actually already told this is a true story. I told my wife if this actually happens, I want my ashes up there too, because I've been killing myself on this project for the last 2 years. So if you win this, I wasn't kidding actually. If you win this trail gets built, Candy, it will be a real park. It's not going to be what you see now, where you're hopping over bushes trying to get up there. It will be a formal trail with a trailhead and parking from the bottom. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, that's.
You gotta remember, we're talking about 2.5 miles worth of trail and 450 acres.
I understand, it's beautiful up there. I just don't wanna see a bunch of bicyclists park along Virginia Canyon, creating hazards for regular people and parking on Virginia Street and all over Heckenback, because we haven't addressed the parking issue up front. For that wonderful area, I cannot drive home that point enough, that's my issue.
I don't think you're gonna see bicycles parking on Virginia Canyon because there's gonna be no access in that. It's all gonna be from the bottom down there.
Very little parking.
Yeah, there's nowhere to park there. You're gonna see them parking at the bottom.
I can tell you that I own some money pins up there and they park all over Calabash and they ride wherever they want.
That's part of it, Candy, that's part of what drove this. Is what's been happening is that there's been renegade use of that park for 20 years. So part of this is we're trying to bring this in to start putting some signage and some dedicated trails where they can ride. Because right now, you've seen some of the structures that they've built up there, they're pretty outrageous. They have huge ramps and things.
And there was an organization actually charging people doing it.
So it wasn't even formal.
So this is where I don't
That's
I
why
mean no offense when I say this. If the city knew that was up there on city property, why didn't you go up there and tear that stuff out instead of leaving us at liability and risk?
Well, we didn't know that all that stuff was up in there until we had started talking about developing that park. And a local individual that's a mountain biker up here took us up there and showed us all these ramps. They're getting up there pretty good. Since that time, from what I understand, it's not easy to get in there. I think Colorado Mountain Bike Association has torn most of them down. But there are still people up there and they're riding bikes.
Well, it's a huge financial risk.
It is a huge risk.
Citizens.
So we either put up a fence around it, or we try to develop it as a park that people can use.
That's a conversation I needed to have. Thank you.
Any more questions? Great conversation. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. Some good questions. I hope we answered you. I know some things aren't what you wanted to hear, but I hope we were open enough to answer the questions that you had for us. Thank you. Be safe out there. I hope it's snowing still. We will have more.